At the height of technology for Japan at the end of World War II, the first prototypes of their jet fighters were seen but retired only some days later. However, what if Japan was able to release these in working order earlier and the US would have seen these throughout the Pacific combat while these two titans were fighting for the seas? We asked participants to see what they could do. Can the US still have an impact and protect their ships from Japan's jet fighter foes? Today, we find out. To be honest, this video actually wasn't the intent for what was planned. The original idea was to do an all-out 1945 US versus 1945 Japan, but due to War Thunder not allowing a full room of 64 players to join, would only let 30 in, and nobody on the US team had the F-80, which was US's first jet fighter that had flown in 1944. The idea ended up turning into this, so I hope you enjoyed today's video. I feature the point of views from participants that did the best. Participants play as both nations and are instructed to protect their own ships and sink what they can from their opponents. Ships couldn't respawn, but planes could. Given a 20-minute time period, let's see what chaos this brings as both nations close in. One of Japan's jet fighters already sneaking past all of the US's planes and reaching their ships. Will the ships at least be able to protect themselves? And a lucky first kamikaze miss for the US side. The Kika was Japan's first jet and first flew in August 1945, just about 1 month before the end of World War II. The Kika was an experimental jet that was designed to be fast, single-seat interceptor powered by a jet engine. However, due to various technical limitations and the challenging circumstances during the war, the Kika never reached the full stage of production or active service. And amazingly, the US team is the first ones to destroy one of Japan's ships. There were a small handful of participants that used these jets while others used the classic prop planes to take on the US in disguise and still try and destroy the US ships, which I think worked for the good for this scenario because it would have faced limited production due to Japan's industry. And so terrifying to see these jet fighters from the ship's point of view as they attempt to kamikaze right into them. I love seeing the dogfights between the US and Japanese players as they both fought their way to reach each other's ships or defend their own. First Japanese prop plane making its way past the US planes defending the area to attack the US ships. US bomber did a great job destroying the first Japanese vessel, but struggled to destroy others. The first US warship getting destroyed. I was surprised how long it took after the US was able to destroy one of Japan, since they had the advantage of their jets. US prop plane making a dive on a Japanese ship. US participants were mostly seen not trying to kamikaze into ships. I don't play air and naval much, so this scream from the pilot kinda caught me off guard just hearing how real it sounded. That's 2 ships down from the 8 on the US team. During World War II, the United States and Japan had different pilot strategies and tactics due to variations in doctrine, aircraft capabilities, and overall military objectives. Some of those key differences were doctrine and training. The United States emphasized a flexible and methodical approach to air warfare. American pilots were trained to use their aircraft effectively in various roles such as air superiority, ground attack, and close air support. The U.S. Army, Air Forces, and Navy focused on coordinated operations with other branches of the military, whereas the Japanese approach was more focused on individual skill, initiative, and aggressiveness. Japanese pilots were trained in aggressive dogfighting tactics and the concept of Bushido, emphasizing bravery and self-sacrifice. The Japanese Navy and Army Air Force operated more independently with limited coordination. Another Japanese ship down, making the score 4 sunk from the US and 2 sunk from the Japanese in this unbalanced match. It's impressive how well the US seems to be doing with the lack of jets on their side. There were more on the US team with 20 total no jets and 8 that were ships, while Japan had 11, 2 being jets and 4 that were ships, with what Gaijin server was letting in the match. About halfway through with 28 deaths on the Japanese side, while the US team has lost 36. So far, the 2 jet participants seem to be having a pretty good impact on ships and plane kill counts compared to the prop planes on their side. We're seeing having a much better chance at kamikazing into the ships, but still had a very hard time reaching them. Killing 3 of the participants' Japanese ships with 2 left. Can the US take out their last 2 before the Japanese can take out their last 4, given the situation they're in? When looking at some aspect, if the Kika was released earlier, it still had some challenges. Its top speed was around 500 miles per hour, 800 kilometers per hour, which was actually comparable to some of the propeller-driven American fighters at the time. And what an incredible mid-air collision. Kika's armament consisted of 2 30mm cannons and 2 550-pound or 250-kilogram bombs, which were modest compared to the firepower of American aircraft like the P-51 Mustang or the F-6F Hellcat. These American planes were equipped with a variety of heavy machine guns and cannons, allowing for greater offensive capabilities. In terms of maneuverability, the Kika suffered from relatively poor handling characteristics, especially compared to American fighters known for their agility and superior dogfighting capabilities. This jet is the R2Y2, which remained on the drawing board at the time of the Japanese surrender on August 15, 1945. So, could have Japan's first jet fighter change the outcome of battles in the Pacific during World War II? Given the scenario that we've seen, and even though the jet fighters are having an impact here, while the Kika was an impressive achievement for Japanese aviation, it is highly unlikely that it could have changed the outcome of the battles in the Pacific. Even if the Kika had been deployed earlier in larger numbers, it would have faced several challenges. Japan's industrial capability was greatly diminished, making mass production of the jet fighter very difficult. Lack of experienced pilot was another. Japan was experiencing a shortage of trained and experienced pilots due to the heavy losses suffered earlier in the war. It would have been challenging to find enough skilled pilots to effectively operate the Kika. Third, Allied air superiority. Their advanced aircraft, such as the American P-51 Mustang, were somewhat comparable in speed, and were more maneuverable and had superior firepower compared to the Kika. The Allies also had a well-developed infrastructure for training pilots and maintaining their aircraft. 4. Strategic bombing campaign. The Allies had conducted a massive strategic bombing campaign against Japan, targeting its industrial and military infrastructure. The Kika would have been vulnerable to these attacks, and Japan's limited resources and production capabilities would have struggled to keep up with the damage caused. USS Nevada took a very impressive beating and was able to defend itself from many kamikaze attempts as well. Coming down to the last few minutes, can the US sink the last Japanese ship before they sink theirs? With Japan having jet fighters, they lost all their ships before the US did, even though they were up against more due to Gaijin's matchmaking server complications. What will the final kill count be within the last 30 seconds of the match? Finishing the match with US having 87 losses and Japan had 72. Hope you all enjoyed this alternate reality historical experiment, and thank you for all those that helped. You all stay cool and keep flying or sailing.